That pink-wearing Karen stood there smirking as her goons poisoned my water well, trying to choke my horses and steal my family's Montana ranch. My blood boiled hotter than a branding iron, my fists aching to settle this the old way. I'm Buck Callahan, a 65-year-old rancher who stared down blizzards, rustlers, and death itself. And this is my war against the slickest, greediest land shark in Montana, Karen Davenport. She thought she'd run this cowboy off with forged papers and dirty tricks. She's about to learn you don't cross a man who's got nothing left to lose. Welcome to HOA Karen Files, where we spit in the face of bullies and root for the fighters. Hit that subscribe button, slam that bell, and saddle up for a tale of grit, vengeance, and a cowboy's justice that'll make you holler. My spread's a 200-acre horse ranch in Montana's Bitterroot Valley. A wild, God-kissed stretch of earth my granddaddy, Silas Callahan, carved from sagebrush and stone back in 1910. He was a mean old cuss, hands rough as saddle leather, heart tough as a mountain, breaking Mustangs under a sky so big it'd swallow you whole. He'd ride out at dawn, his shadow stretching across the plains, taming horses that'd sooner kick your teeth in than let you near. By the time I was born, his ranch was legend, raising the finest quarter horses in the state, their hooves thundering like a storm, winning races from Missoula to Billings. Folks called him Mustang Silas, and this land wasn't just dirt, it was our blood, our bones, our soul. My daddy Jed kept it strong, and when he passed, it fell to me. My wife, Clara, bless her heart, loved it as fierce as I did. She'd ride beside me at dusk, her red hair blazing in the sun, laughing as our stallion Blaze kicked up dust. We'd sit by the creek, her hand in mine, dreaming of our boy, Tommy, taking the reins someday. She'd say, "Buck, this ranch is our forever." Cancer stole her 5 years back, leaving a hole in me wider than this valley. Tommy, our only son, died 2 years later in a truck wreck, taking my last piece of her. I buried them both under the big cottonwood by the corral, swearing on their graves I'd keep this ranch alive, keep it ours no matter what. I'm a rancher, a cowboy, with dust in my veins and a stubborn streak that'd make a bull jealous. But I didn't see the storm brewing a mile away. That storm was Bitterroot Bluffs, a sprawl of glass condos, golf greens, and city folks who sneered at my ranch like it was a blemish on their polished world. They weren't neighbors, they were vultures, led by Davenport Realty, a company that had gobbled up half the valley's ranches like a wolf on a carcass. I'd heard whispers of their dirty deeds, bribing county officials, strong-arming ranchers to sell for pennies, bulldozing homesteads for ski lodges. Old man Tucker, my neighbor, sold his spread last year after they lost his deed and slapped him with fines he couldn't pay. I kept my head low, tending my 30 horses, mares, stallions, and colts, each one a piece of my heart, thinking they'd steer clear. That was my first mistake, and it damn near cost me everything. It all kicked off one September morning, the air crisp with fall, the kind of day that makes your blood sing. I was in the corral, checking my prize mare, Starlight, her coat shining like a moonbeam. She'd foaled a colt last spring, a feisty little cuss I named Thunder, and I was planning to train him for the Billings Derby. I tossed her a handful of oats, my Stetson tipped back, when a foul stench hit me like a mule's kick. I ran to the well that feeds my corrals, the lifeblood of my horses, and the water was black, stinking of chemicals, bubbles rising like poison. My horses were snorting, pawing the ground, refusing to drink, their eyes wild with fear. I dipped my hand in, the stench burning my nose, and spat it out. Pure poison like diesel mixed with death. Then I saw it. A wooden sign staked by the well, bold red letters reading Davenport Property, mocking me in my own dirt. I roared, "What in the hell is this?" A shiny SUV rolled up, kicking dust, and a woman stepped out, 50-something, blonde hair teased high, wearing a pink pantsuit brighter than a whorehouse sign. Karen Davenport, CEO of Davenport Realty, her sunglasses perched like she owned the damn sun, her smile sharper than a Bowie knife. 2 goons in suits flanked her, their eyes cold as snakes. Mr. Callahan, she purred, all honey and poison. This ranch is ours now. Your well's on our land, and those horses are trespassing. I was thunderstruck, my hands balling into fists. Lady, I ain't selling to your damn company. This is my ranch, free and clear. She waved a contract, her pink nails flashing like claws. Our records say different. You've got 30 days to vacate, or we'll sue you dry. My blood burned, my boots itching to kick that contract to hell. But I held steady. I was facing a rattlesnake in pink, and snakes don't die easy. I stormed to my cabin, the floorboards creaking under my boots, and yanked Granddaddy's deed from a lockbox under the bed. That paper, yellowed as an old bone, was my anchor. Callahan land, 200 acres, free and clear since 1910, signed by Silas himself. I could still see him, sitting by the fire, his voice rough as gravel, telling me stories of breaking Mustangs and fighting off rustlers. This land's your blood, Buck, he'd say. Hold it tight, or you ain't a Callahan. I clutched that deed like a Bible, my heart pounding, and saddled my old Chevy, its engine growling like a bear. I rode to the county office in Hamilton, the deeds stuffed in my coat, dust trailing behind me. Found a clerk named Ellie, a young gal with a sharp mind and a distrust of city slickers. She'd grown up on a ranch, knew the valley's ways, and didn't take kindly to suits like Karen. I slid the deed across her desk, my voice low. Ellie, I need you to check my land. Some pink-wearing vultures claiming it's hers. She pulled up my property on her computer, her freckled face frowning, chewing her pencil. Says here your ranch is under Davenport's claim, she said, voice hushed. Boundary shift filed last year, moving your line 500 yards east. I slammed my fist on the counter, the deed shaken. That's horse shit, Ellie. My granddaddy didn't sign nothing. She nodded, her eyes narrowing, and dug deeper into the records, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Then she froze, her breath catching. This ain't right, Buck, she muttered, showing me a document with Silas's signature. Dated 3 years after we laid him in the ground, his bones cold under that cottonwood. Forged, plain as a sunrise. They snuck this through during probate, Ellie said, her voice tight with anger. Dirty as a saloon floor after a brawl. I felt like a steer caught in a stampede, my head spinning, my gut churning. Can you prove it's fake? I asked, leaning in. She nodded, her jaw set like a rancher's. I'll try, Buck, but it'll take time. Davenport's got powerful friends, lawyers, county men, maybe even the sheriff. Watch your back. I tipped my Stetson, my voice steady. I always do, Ellie. Keep this quiet. I left with a fire in my belly, knowing I was up against a fight bigger than a barroom scrap. Karen wasn't just after my land, she was after my name, my legacy, and I'd be damned if I let her win. I didn't need no crowd to settle this. A cowboy don't cry for help. He loads his gun and rides. But I needed answers, and I wasn't waiting for him to fall in my lap. That night I saddled Blaze, my black stallion with a temper to match mine, and rode to the edge of Bitterroot Bluffs, keeping to the shadows. The condos glowed like a fake city, their lights mocking the stars. I tied Blaze to a pine and crept close to Davenport's office, a glass tower that looked like it belonged in a damn movie, not my valley. Through a window I saw Karen, her pink suit blazing under neon lights, talking to a suit with slicked back hair. Her lawyer, I reckoned, by the way he waved papers like a weapon. She laughed, cold as ice, saying something about breaking that cowboy and resort contracts. My blood boiled, but I stayed still, listening. They were planning to turn my ranch into a damn ski lodge, with gondolas and hot tubs where my horses ran free. I slipped away, my mind racing. Karen was a thief, but she wasn't working alone, and I'd need more than grit to bury her. Next day I rode into town, stopping at the Rusty Spur, a dive bar where ranchers and roughnecks swapped lies over whiskey. My old buddy Cal, a grizzled rancher with a face like old leather, was nursing a beer, his hat as beat up as mine. Heard about your trouble, Buck, he said, spitting tobacco into a can. That Davenport woman's a viper. Ran old Tucker out of his place. I nodded, my jaw tight. She's trying to steal my ranch, Cal. Forge my granddaddy's name. His eyes narrowed, his voice low. She's got a lawyer, Kessler, who's dirtier than a pig wallow. Word is, he's bribing county folks to push her deals through. I leaned in, my voice a growl. You hear anything else? You let me know. But this is my fight, partner. Cal grinned, his teeth yellow as corn. Always was, Buck, but I'll keep my ears open. I tipped my hat and left, my mind churning. Cal was a good man, but I wasn't dragging him into this. A cowboy fights alone, and I was loading my guns. I rode to Davenport's office that afternoon, my boots heavy with purpose. The receptionist, all fake smiles and perfume, tried to wave me off, but I pushed past, my spurs jangling on their marble floor. Karen was in her office, sipping wine from a pink glass, her heels propped on a desk like she was Queen of Montana. Two goons in suits stood by the door, their hands twitching like they wanted trouble. She didn't stand, just smirked, her sunglasses reflecting my scowl. Mr. Callahan, come to beg, she said, her voice dripping scorn. I leaned over her desk, my shadow falling like a storm. You forged my granddaddy's name, Karen. This land's mine, and I'll bury you before you steal it. She laughed, sharp and cold, and slid a $10,000 fine across the desk, her nails tapping like a rattler's tail. Unapproved livestock, she said. Pay, or we'll seize your horses and sell them for glue. Shiakurtain. My blood roared, my fists clenching. But one of her goons stepped forward, a big bastard with a scar on his cheek, his hand on a holster. Easy, cowboy, he growled. I stared him down, my voice low as thunder. Touch me, and you'll be eating dirt. Karen waved him off, her smirk wider. You're out of your depth, Buck. Court's expensive, and we don't lose. Sell now, or we'll take everything. Your horses, your cabin, your name. I spat on her floor, my eyes burning into hers. You're a thief in pink, lady, and I'm going to end you. I turned on my heel, the goons parting like scared dogs, my blood pounding like a blacksmith's hammer. Karen wasn't just a snake. She was a hydra, and I'd need a bigger blade to cut her down. Back at the ranch, I sat on the porch, Clara's empty saddle hanging beside me, the corral stretching out under a sky bruised with clouds. I could still hear her laugh, see her ride in starlight, her hair flying like a flame. She'd love this place, every horse, every fence post, every sunrise. I'd built a swing for Tommy under that cottonwood, watching him giggle as Clara pushed him high. Now they were gone, and this ranch was all I had left of them. I wasn't fighting for dirt, I was fighting for them, for the Callahans, for every drop of sweat we'd poured into this land. I walked to the corral, checking my horses, their coats glinting in the dusk. Starlight nuzzled my hand, her colt, Thunder, kicking up dirt like he knew trouble was coming. We'll hold this place, I whispered, my voice thick. Ain't no pink snake taking it. But Karen wasn't waiting. 2 nights later, I woke to a crash louder than a dynamite blast. I grabbed my Winchester, my boots half on, and ran outside, the cold biting my bones. A bulldozer was tearing through my south corral, splinters flying like shrapnel, the fence posts snapping like bones. A crew was planting more Davenport property signs. Their floodlights blinded me, the red letters glowing like blood. I bellowed, "Get the hell off my land!" The foreman, a weaselly fellow with Karen's contract, smirked. "Company orders, old man." I raised my Winchester, firing a warning shot into the sky, the boom echoing like God's own hammer. They scattered like roaches, the bulldozer stalling in the mud, but the damage was done. My corral was kindling, and my horses were spooked, rearing in their pens, their whinnies cutting the night. I stood there, breath fogging, my hands shaking with rage. This was war, and I'd fight it my way. Next morning, I rode Blaze across the ranch, checking the wreckage. The corral was a mess, posts splintered, wire tangled like a drunk's lasso. I found tire tracks leading to Bitterroot Bluffs, Karen's crew, no doubt. I spent the day rebuilding, my hands blistered from hammering new posts, my back screaming from hauling wire. My old friend Nate, a retired mechanic who'd fixed my Chevy more times than I could count, stopped by with a sack of nails and a thermos of coffee. "Heard about your trouble, Buck," he said, his voice rough as gravel. "That Davenport woman's poison. She tried to buy my shop last year, sent goons when I said no. I nodded, wiping sweat from my brow. She's after my ranch, Nate. Forged my granddaddy's name. He spat in the dirt, his eyes hard. You need a hand, I'm here. I shook my head, my voice firm. This is my fight, partner. But if you hear anything, you holler. Nate grinned, his wrinkles deep as canyons. Reckon I will. Watch yourself, Buck. I tipped my hat and got back to work, knowing I had friends in the valley, but this was my war to win. Karen hit again that night. I was mending a saddle in the barn, the lantern cast in shadows, when I heard a low rumble, like a stampede. I grabbed my Winchester and ran to the north pasture, my heart pounded. The gate was busted open, and half my mares, 10 of them, including Starlight, were gone, their hoof prints mixing with tire tracks in the dirt. I saddled Blaze, my hands shaking with fury, and rode out, following the tracks under a sliver of moon. Found my mares 2 miles off, tangled in a ravine, spooked and bleeding from barbed wire some bastard had strung up. Starlight was limping, a gash on her flank, but alive. I cut the wire, my knife flashing, and led him home, whispering to keep him calm. Took me till dawn, my boots soaked, my hands raw from wire cuts. I patched Starlight's wound, my voice breaking. You're tougher than me, girl. In the dirt, I found another Davenport property sign, smaller like a taunt. I smashed it with my boot, my voice a growl. You're playing dirty, Karen, so will I. I rigged traps along my fence line, tripwires with bells, bear traps from Granddaddy's shed, old barbed wire stretched low. Caught one of Karen's goons the next night, his legs snagged, howling like a kick dog. I stood over him, my Winchester glinting in the moonlight. Tell Karen she's poking a grizzly, I said, my voice low as death. He nodded, pale as a ghost, and I let him crawl off. Fear's a better weapon than blood, and I was carving deep, but Karen wasn't done. 3 days later, I woke to the stench of smoke, sharp and acrid. I ran outside, my heart racing, and saw my hay barn blazing, flames eating half my winter feed, the glow lighting up the valley. I fought the fire with a hose, my lungs choking, my hands blistered, saving what I could. Took me till noon, the barn half gone, my feed ruined. Found a gasoline-soaked rag in the ashes, proof of arson, and a note pinned to the wreckage. Sell or burn. I crushed it, my voice a snarl. You want to burn, Karen? I'll light the match. I rode to town that evening, my hat low, needing a drink to cool my blood. The rusty spur was packed, ranchers and cowhands jawing over beers. I was at the bar nursing a whiskey when Karen walked in, her pink pantsuit glowing like a neon sign, her goons trailing like dogs. The room went quiet, all eyes on her. She sauntered over, her heels clicking, and leaned close, her perfume choking me. Buck, let's talk business, she said, her voice smooth as oil. Sell me the ranch for $100,000. It's a fair deal, and I'll let your horses live. I laughed, hard and bitter, the whiskey burning my throat. You poisoned my well, burned my barn, and stole my mares, lady. You think I'll bend for $1? Her smirk faded, her eyes cold as a winter creek. You're a fool, Callahan. Keep fighting, and we'll take everything. Your land, your horses, your pride. My lawyer's got friends in high places. I stood towering over her, my voice low as thunder. You got no friends here, Karen. Get out of my town or I'll drag you out myself. The bar tensed, hands on bottles, ready for a brawl. Her goons stepped forward, but Cal and a few ranchers stood up, their eyes hard. Karen's smirk returned, but it was shaky. This isn't over, she hissed, turning on her heel, her goons following. The bar erupted in cheers as she left, but I stayed quiet, knowing she'd hit harder next. I started fighting back, cowboy style. I patrolled the ranch at night, Blaze's hooves quiet on the dirt, my Winchester across my saddle. Found a stash of herbicide barrels near my stream, marked with Davenport's logo. I hauled them to my shed, evidence piling up. One morning, I caught a crew cutting my east fence, trying to let my horses loose again. I rode up, firing a warning shot, my voice booming. Next one's in your ass. They ran, leaving tools and another damn sign. I tore it down, my hands shaking with rage. I also shadowed Karen's crew, riding through the hills at dusk, spotting their trucks dumping poison. Followed one to a warehouse on Bitterroot land, hiding in the sagebrush. Inside, I saw barrels of chemicals, stacks of Davenport property signs, and a map with my ranch circled in red, labeled Resort Phase 1. My blood burned, but I stayed cool, slipping away with a plan. Karen was building a vacation empire on my dirt, but I'd burn it down. I rode to Ellie's house, the clerk who'd helped me. She let me in, her eyes wide with worry. "Buck, you're stirring a hornet's nest," she said, pouring coffee. I nodded, handing her a list. "Need records on Kessler, Davenport's lawyer, and any county man tied to her. Anything dirty." She hesitated, then nodded. "For you, Buck, I'll dig, but be careful." I tipped my hat and left, knowing I was walking a razor's edge. Ellie came through 3 days later, slipping me a file at the feed store, her hands shaking. "Kessler's been taking $30,000 a year from Davenport," she whispered. "Bank records, emails, all here. He's pushing fake deeds through, and a county man, Vance, is in on it." I tucked the file in my coat, my heart kicking like a colt. "You're a good gal, Ellie. Stay clear now." She nodded, her eyes scared but firm. Hope came from a rough place. That night I was checking traps when I caught a fella sneaking near my corral, a former Davenport worker named Roy, drunk and stumbling. I pinned him against the fence, my Winchester at his chest. "Talk or you're done," I growled. He spilled, his voice slurring. "Karen's got a surveyor, Hank, who faked your boundary. I got emails where she brags about bribing Vance and breaking you." He fumbled in his pocket, handing me a USB, his hands shaking. "I'm done with her, Buck. Take it and burn her down." I let him go, the USB burning a hole in my hand. I rode back to the cabin, staring at the corrals under the moon, the Davenport property signs glinting like knives. Karen thought she'd broken me, but I was just getting started. What Roy gave me and what Karen didn't know I had was gonna shake this valley to its core. Stick around for part 2, 'cause this cowboy's riding into a storm, and it's gonna be meaner than a cornered rattler. I was sitting in my cabin, Clara's saddle hanging like a ghost beside me, that USB from Roy burning a hole in my hand. The former Davenport worker had spilled his guts, handed me emails where Karen bragged about faking my granddaddy's deed and bribing a county man, Vance, to push her land grab through. My ranch, 200 acres of corrals and quarter horses, built by Buck Callahan in 1910, was under siege. Karen's goons had poisoned my well, torched my hay barn, busted my corral, and set my mares loose, leaving Davenport property signs like daggers in my dirt. I had Ellie's file on Kessler, Karen's dirty lawyer, and a stash of herbicide barrels as evidence. But I needed more to bury her. Roy's USB mentioned a surveyor, Hank, who'd drawn fake boundaries to steal my land for her ski resort. I locked the USB in a steel box under the floorboards, next to Granddaddy's deed, and saddled Blaze, my black stallion, his eyes flashing like he knew we were heading into a storm. This wasn't just a fight for my ranch, it was a fight for Clara, for Silas, for every Callahan who'd bled for this land. A cowboy don't wait for help, he strikes, and I was ready to draw blood. First, I needed Hank. Roy said he was holed up in a trailer on the edge of Bitterroot Bluffs, scared of Karen's wrath. I rode my Chevy into town at dawn, the valley glowing gold under a rising sun. Stopped at the feed store to pick up grain from my horses, my mind racing. Old Nate, the mechanic who'd fixed my truck for years, was there, loading sacks, his hands black with grease. "Heard you're tangling with Davenport," he said, spitting in the dirt. "She's got a surveyor, Hank Larson, who's been drawing her maps. Shady fella, drinks at the Rusty Spur." I nodded, my jaw tight. "Thanks, Nate. This is my fight, but keep your ears open." He grinned, his wrinkles deep as canyons. "Always do, Buck." I drove to Hank's trailer, a rusty heap parked by a dry creek, sagebrush clawing at its sides. I knocked hard, my Stetson low, Winchester slung over my shoulder. Hank opened the door, A wiry man in his 60s, gray beard stained with tobacco, eyes darting like a trapped coyote. "You Buck Callahan?" he rasped, glancing over my shoulder. I nodded, my voice hard. "Heard you faked my boundary for Karen Davenport. I got emails that'll bury you both." He paled, stepping back, his hands shaking. "I didn't want no part of it," he stammered. "She paid me $5,000 to shift your line, said it was legal, threatened my grandkids when I tried to quit." He fumbled in a drawer, handed me a stack of papers. Maps showing my ranch carved up, emails from Karen ordering the fraud. "This is all I got," he said, voice breaking. "She's got a county man Vance in her pocket, and her lawyer Kessler covers it all." I tucked the papers in my coat, my heart kicking. "You'll testify?" I asked. He swallowed hard. "If you keep her off me." I gripped his shoulder, my voice steady. "Stay hid, Hank. I'll handle the rest." Shum. I left with dynamite in my pocket, knowing Karen wasn't going to sit still while I loaded my guns. Back at the ranch, I fortified my defenses. I rebuilt the south corral, hammering posts till my hands bled, stringing new wire tight as a banjo. Starlight, my prize mare, was healing from her gash, her colt, Thunder, prancing like he sensed the fight. I rigged more traps, sharpened stakes under sagebrush, bells on tripwires, bear traps from Silas's shed. They'd already caught 3 of Karen's goons, sent 'em limping back to Bitterroot Bluffs. But Karen upped the ante. One morning I woke to a god-awful racket, like a herd gone wild. I ran outside, boots half on, and saw a pack of feral horses, scruffy, mean-eyed Mustangs, stamping through my north pasture, tearing up my grays and spooking my mares. The gate was busted, tire tracks showing Karen's crew had driven 'em in, hoping to ruin my herd. I saddled Blaze, my Winchester in hand, and rode out, whistling sharp to calm my horses. Took me 3 hours to round up my mares, driving the ferals into a canyon with warning shots, my lungs burning, my voice hoarse. Starlight was safe, but 2 colts were limping, their legs cut from the chaos. I found another Davenport property sign by the gate, red letters mocking me. I tore it down, my hands shaking, and spotted a note nailed to the post. "Sell or lose 'em all." I crushed it, my voice a growl. "You want to play dirty, Karen? I'll bury you in it." I wasn't waiting for her next move. I rode to the county records office, my coat stuffed with Hank's maps and Ellie's file. Ellie let me into the archives after hours, her eyes worried but firm. "You're pushing a boulder uphill, Buck," she said, handing me coffee. I nodded, my voice low. "Ain't the first time, Ellie." I spent 4 nights poring over dusty files, my lantern flicking off faded deeds. Found gold, a 1915 survey showing my ranch's true boundaries, signed by a dead county man who couldn't be bought. It matched Hank's maps, proving Karen's boundary shift was a lie. I also found a canceled check from Davenport to Vance, the county official, for $15,000 marked consulting. Bribe money clear as day. I copied it all, my hands steady, knowing I was building a noose for Karen's neck. But I needed more to hang her, and I wasn't stopping till I had it. Karen didn't let up. One night I caught a drone buzzing over my corrals, its red lights blinking like a devil's eyes. I grabbed my Winchester, took aim, and blasted it to pieces, the wreckage crashing in my dirt. Davenport logo, just like the herbicide barrels. I stomped it, my voice low. "Keep spying, Karen. You'll see what's coming." 2 days later, I found my main gate smashed, the iron bent like taffy, tire tracks leading to Bitterroot Bluffs. My horses could have bolted, but I'd locked the inner pens tight. I welded the gate myself, my torch sparking in the dusk, my back screaming. Then came more fines, $12,000 for unapproved fencing, $5,000 for non-compliant livestock, all signed with Karen's pink scrawl. I burned them in my fire pit, the flames eating her lies. She was trying to bleed me dry, to break my spirit. She didn't know I was forged in harder fires than this. I kept fighting, cowboy style. I rigged more traps, barbed wire stretched low, stakes hidden in grass. Caught another goon, his ankle snagged, cursing like a sailor. I loomed over him, my Winchester glinting. "Tell Karen her time's up," I said. He nodded, blood dripping, and I let him limp off. I also shadowed her crew, riding Blaze through the hills, spotting their trucks dumping poison in my stream. Followed one to a construction site on Bitterroot land, where Davenport was breaking ground for her resort. I hid in the brush, watching bulldozers chew up good pasture. Karen strutted in her pink suit, barking orders. I crept closer, overhearing her talk to Kessler, her lawyer. "Callahan's stubborn," she said, her voice sharp. "If he won't sell, we'll make his ranch worthless. Poison the stream, loose more ferals, whatever it takes." Kessler nodded, his slick hair glinting. "And the deed?" Karen laughed, cold as ice. "It'll hold. By the time he fights it, we'll have condos up." My blood burned, but I stayed still, memorizing every word. I slipped away, my mind set. Karen was a devil, and I'd send her to hell. I rode to the Rusty Spur that evening, needing a drink to cool my blood. Cal was there, along with another rancher, Maggie, a tough old gal who'd lost her spread to developers years back. "You're stirring up talk, Buck," Maggie said, her voice like gravel. "Folks are watching your fight with Davenport." I nodded, my whiskey burning. "It's my fight, Maggie. Don't need no posse." She grinned, her eyes sharp. "Reckon you don't, but we're rooting for you." I tipped my hat, but my mind was elsewhere. Karen walked in, her pink suit glowing under the bar's neon, her goons trailing. The room hushed, all eyes on her. She sauntered over, her heels clicking, and leaned close, her perfume choking me. "Buck, let's end this," she said, her voice smooth as poison. $150,000 for the ranch. Take it, or your horses won't see spring." I stood towering over her, my voice low as thunder. "You burned my barn, poisoned my water, and stole my mares, lady. You think I'll bend for a dime? Get out of my face or I'll drag you out of this bar." Her smirk faded, her eyes flashing with rage. "You're a dead man, Callahan," she hissed, her goons stepping forward. Cal and Maggie stood, hands on their belts, and the bar tensed, ready for a brawl. Karen's goons backed off, and she stormed out, her heels echoing. The bar erupted in cheers, but I stayed quiet, knowing she'd hit harder now. Trouble came fast. One night I woke to a scream, human, not horse. I grabbed my Winchester and ran to the corral, the moon casting shadows like ghosts. My hired hand, Jimmy, a kid of 20 who mucked stalls, was sprawled in the dirt, blood leaking from his head. A goon stood over him, holding a crowbar, another Davenport property sign half-staked beside him. I fired a warning shot, the boom scattering the goon, and knelt by Jimmy, his breath shallow but alive. I carried him to the cabin, bandaging his head, my hands shaking. "They jumped me, Buck," he rasped. "Said to tell you to sell." I nodded, my voice hard. "Rest, kid. This ain't your fight." I rode to the sheriff, an old pal named Roy, and showed him the crowbar, marked with Davenport's logo. He frowned, his face lined like old leather. "This is assault, Buck, but pinning it on Karen's tricky. She's got Vance and half the county in her pocket." I nodded, my jaw tight. "I'll pin it, Roy." "She ain't winning." I left knowing I was on my own, but that's how a cowboy rides. I needed to tighten the noose. I rode to Hank's trailer again, moving quiet under a starless sky. He was a wreck, chain-smoking, his eyes bloodshot. "They're watching me, Buck," he said, voice shaken. "Karen's goons every day." I handed him a burner phone, my voice steady. "You're testifying, Hank. I'll keep you safe, but you gotta stand tall." He nodded, clutching the phone. "I got one more thing," he said, handing me a recording, a tape of Karen telling Vance to bury Callahan's deed and make his ranch a fire trap. I gripped the tape, my blood singing. "Stay hid, Hank. This ends soon." I left, knowing I had her by the throat, but Karen was about to play her dirtiest card. 2 days later, I heard a low roar, like a twister coming. I ran outside, Winchester ready, and saw a bulldozer, bigger than before, tearing through my west corral, crushing posts like matchsticks. A crew was planting signs, their floodlights blinded me, and a new billboard loomed. "Bitterroot Resort, coming soon." I fired a warning shot, but they didn't budge. A hired thug, built like a bear, stepped up, holding Karen's contract. "This is Davenport land," he growled. "Leave, or we bury you." I aimed my Winchester at his chest, my voice ice. "Try it, and you're the one in the dirt." He smirked but backed off, the crew retreating. I stood there, breath fogging, watching him go. The billboard mocked me, its lights burning my eyes. I rode to the construction site that night, my torch in hand, and set the billboard ablaze, the flames roaring like my rage. I wasn't playing fair no more. Karen had pushed me too far. I sat on my porch, Clara's saddle creaking in the wind, staring at the corrals. I saw her riding Starlight, her laugh carrying across the plains, felt Silas's hand on my shoulder, teaching me to rope. This ranch was them, and I'd die before I let Karen take it. But what I found in that tape, and what Karen didn't know I had, was gonna light a fuse that'd blow her world apart. Stick around for part 3, because this cowboy's riding into the final showdown, and it's gonna be bloodier than a saloon brawl. Subscribe to HOA Karen Files, hit that bell, and toss your own land grab horror stories in the comments. Let's run these Karens out of Montana together. I stood in the corral, the moon casting shadows over my horses, that tape from Hank burning in my pocket. It held Karen's voice, cold as a winter creek, telling Vance to bury Callahan's deed and make his ranch a fire trap. My 200-acre spread, built by my granddaddy, Silas Callahan, in 1910, was more than dirt. It was Clara's laugh, Silas's sweat, Tommy's dreams. Karen's Davenport Realty had poisoned my well, torched my barn, loosed my mares, and smashed my gates, staking Davenport property signs like knives in my soul. I had dynamite, Roy's USB with Karen's bragging emails, Ellie's file on Kessler's bribes, Hank's fake maps, county records proving Vance's corruption, and that tape. But Karen was a cornered rattler, and I knew she'd strike hard before I could drag her to court. I locked my evidence in a steel box under the cottonwood where Clara and Tommy rested, whispering, "We'll hold this land, darling." I saddled Blaze, my black stallion, his hooves pawing the dirt, and got to work. This was my ranch, my legacy, and I'd fight till my last breath to keep it. I started with Vance, the county man taking Karen's bribes. I rode to his fancy cabin at dusk, my Chevy's engine growling low. He was on his deck, sipping bourbon, looking smug as a fox in a hen house. I stepped out, my Stetson low, Winchester slung over my shoulder. "Vance," I said, voice hard as iron, "we need to talk about Karen Davenport." His glass froze, his eyes darting like a spooked colt. "Don't know what you mean," he stammered, sweat beaten. I tossed Ellie's file at his feet, pages scattering. $15,000 in bribes, bank records, emails. "You're dirty, and I got you cold." He paled, his hands shaking. "What do you want, Callahan?" he whined. I leaned in, my shadow swallowing him. "Testify against her, or I'd take this to the feds. Your call." He nodded, trembling like a leaf. "I'll do it, Buck. Just keep my name quiet." I tipped my hat, leaving him to stew. One down, but Karen was the prize, and I was closing in. Back at the ranch, I doubled my defenses. I rebuilt the West Corral, hammering posts till my hands bled, welding the gate stronger than ever. Starlight, my mare, was back to her old self, her colt, Thunder, prancing like a born racer. I set more traps, barbed wire low, bells on tripwires, stakes under sagebrush. They'd caught 5 of Karen's goons so far, each one limping back with my warning. But Karen played dirtier. One morning, I found my water tank slashed, flooding my east pasture, drowning the graze my horses needed. I worked till midnight to patch it, my boots soaked, my back screaming. Then came a new horror. I woke to a stench worse than death. My south corral was smeared with rancid oil, slick and toxic, my horses slipping and snorting in panic. I spent 2 days scrubbing it clean, my hands raw, my lungs burning. Found a Davenport-marked can in the dirt, proof of sabotage, and another note, "Sell or die." I crushed it, my voice a snarl. "You're the one dying, Karen." I rode to the rusty spur, needing to clear my head. Cal and Maggie were there, along with other ranchers, their faces hard with worry. "You're making waves, Buck," Cal said, spitting tobacco. "Folks are talking, saying you're taking on Davenport single-handed." I nodded, my whiskey burning. "It's my fight, Cal. Always was." Maggie leaned in, her eyes sharp. "You're fighting for all of us, Buck. Karen's been bleeding this valley dry." I tipped my hat, my voice low. "Then I'll bleed her first." I left, my mind racing. The valley was watching, but I didn't need a posse. I needed a silver bullet, and I was Forgans it myself. I rode to Davenport's construction site, where her resort was taking shape. Bulldozers roared, chewing up pasture, and Karen stood in her pink suit, barking orders. I tied Blaze to a tree and marched up, my boots kicking dust. Her goons tensed, but she waved them off, her smirk cold as ice. "Buck, you're persistent," she said, her voice dripping scorn. "Sell now, $200,000, last offer." I laughed, hard and bitter. "You poisoned my water, burned my barn, and oiled my corral, lady. You think I'll bend for $1? I got your tape, your maps, your bribes. You're done." Her smirk vanished, her eyes flashing with rage. "You're bluffing, cowboy. Push me, and you'll lose more than your ranch." I stepped close, my voice low as thunder. "Push me, Karen, and you'll be in cuffs." Her goons closed in, but I stared them down, my hand on my knife. She backed off, her voice shaken. "This ain't over, Callahan." I turned, my heart pounding, knowing I'd rattled her cage. Karen struck back hard. One night, I heard a roar, louder than a stampede. I grabbed my Winchester and ran outside, the sky glowing orange. My north corral was ablaze, flames eating the fence, creeping toward my barn. My horses were screaming, rearing in their pens, the heat searing my face. I fought the fire with a hose, my lungs choking, my hands blistered, shouting to calm my herd. Took me till dawn, losing half the corral and a shed full of tack. In the ashes, I found a gasoline-soaked rag, Karen's calling card, and a note. "Last chance." I laughed, bitter and hard. "Not yet, you snake." I didn't call no sheriff. This was my war. But I wasn't dumb. I rode to Ellie's house, the clerk who'd helped me. She let me in, her face pale. "Buck, you're playing with dynamite," she said. I nodded, handing her a list. "Need every record on Vance and Kessler. Anything to nail 'em." She nodded, her hand steady. "For you, Buck, I'll dig deep." I tipped my hat and left, knowing I was walking a tightrope. Ellie came through 2 days later, slipping me a file at the feed store, her eyes scared. "Vance took $60,000 from Davenport over 4 years," she whispered. "Bank records, emails, even a contract for your ranch's rezoning. Kessler's in it too, shell companies to hide the money." I tucked the file in my coat, my heart racing. "You're a saint, Ellie. Stay clear now." She nodded, her voice soft. "End her, Buck." I rode home, the file burning like a hot coal. I had enough to hang Karen, but I needed one more piece. I rode to Hank's trailer, knocking late, my hat low. He was worse than before, his hands shaking, his voice a rasp. "They're tailing me, Buck. Karen's goons, everywhere." I leaned in, my voice steady. "One more shot, Hank. Give me something to finish her." He handed me another tape, his fingers trembling. "Karen bragging to Kessler about framing you for arson, saying she'll burn your ranch and pin it on you." I gripped the tape, my blood singing. "Stay hid, Hank. This ends now." I left, knowing I had her neck in a noose, but Karen was about to play her deadliest card. That night, I heard hoofbeats, wild, not blazes. I stepped outside, Winchester ready, and saw a dozen feral Mustangs stampeding through my east pasture, driven by 2 of Karen's goons on ATVs. Their lights blinded me. My horses were panicking, breaking pens, and I saw Starlight bolt, her colt, Thunder, trailing. I fired a warning shot, scattering the goons, and saddled Blaze, riding hard to save my herd. The ferals were chaos, kicking up dust, but I roped Starlight, calming her with a whistle, and led her back, Thunder safe. I lost 3 colts to the ravine, their legs broken, and had to put them down, my hands shaking as I pulled the trigger. In the dirt, I found another Davenport property sign and a note. "You're done." I crushed it, my voice a growl. Not yet, Karen. I buried the Colts under the cottonwood, whispering to Clara, I'll make her pay, darling. I knew court was my only shot to end this legal-like. I didn't trust lawyers. Too many words, not enough spine. But I needed one. I rode to town, asking quiet, and found Amos, a retired attorney who'd fought developers in the 80s. He was 75, lean as a whip, with eyes like a hawk and a hate for land grabbers. I met him at his cabin, laying out my evidence. Roy's USB, Hank's tapes and maps, Ellie's files, the herbicide cans, the gasoline rags. His eyes lit up, a wolf smelling blood. This ain't just fraud, he said, slapping the table. It's racketeering, conspiracy, assault. We'll bury her. I nodded, my jaw tight. I don't want no circus, Amos. Just her head on a pike. He grinned, pouring me whiskey. You'll get it, cowboy. We filed a lawsuit that day, forgery, trespass, sabotage, arson, racketeering. Amos called it a hangman's knot, and I was pulling it tight. Karen fought back like a demon. The next day I got served papers. Davenport suing me for defamation and trespass on their land. Pure gall, but I expected it. Then came the goons. One night I caught 3 of them sneaking toward my cabin, carrying gas cans and crowbars. I fired a warning shot, then tackled one, my fist meeting his jaw. He went down, his buddies running. I tied him to a post, my voice low. Tell Karen she's finished. He nodded, blood dripping, and I let him crawl off. The next morning, my mailbox was stuffed with threats. $20,000 fines, notices of eminent domain. I burned them, the flames reflecting in my eyes. Karen was desperate, and desperate snakes bite wild. Amos worked fast, lining up witnesses. Vance agreed to testify, scared of the feds more than Karen. Hank was ready, hiding in a safe spot I'd set up in the hills. Ellie handed over more records, showing Karen's shell companies laundering bribe money. I kept patrolling my ranch, Winchester in hand. Blaze at my side, his snort keeping me sharp. One evening, I caught a glint in the sagebrush, binoculars, watching me. I fired a shot into the brush, hearing a yelp as the spy fled. Karen was scared, and I could taste it, but she had one last trick. 2 days before court, I woke to a crash. My barn door smashed open. Inside, my tack was doused in oil, a match half struck beside it. I caught the goon, a scrawny kid, and pinned him down, my knife at his throat. Who sent you? I growled. He sobbed. Karen, she said burn it all. I let him run, keeping the match as evidence. My barn was safe, but my blood was lava. You're done, Karen, I whispered. Court day came, the sky heavy with snow. I walked into the Hamilton courthouse, my boots echoing, Amos at my side, my evidence in a steel case. The room was packed, ranchers, shopkeepers, folks who'd heard of my fight. Karen sat at the defense table, pink suit crisp, smirking like she'd won. Her lawyer Kessler was a city slicker, all teeth and lies. Judge Clara Thompson, a no-nonsense woman with gray hair like steel, took the bench, her gavel hitting like a blacksmith's hammer. Amos laid it out, the forged deed with Silas's fake signature, Hank's maps showing fake boundaries, Ellie's records proving Vance's bribes, the herbicide cans, the gasoline rags, the crowbar from Jimmy's assault. He played Hank's tape, Karen's voice echoing cold. Bury Callahan's deed, make his ranch a fire trap. The courtroom gasped, Karen's smirk fading. I took the stand, my voice steady, telling of the poisoned well, the burned barn, the loosed mares, the oiled corral. This ain't just my ranch, I said, eyes locked on Karen. It's my family, my blood, and you ain't taking it. Vance testified, sweating, admitting to her bribes. Hank, shaken but firm, showed his maps, proving her fraud. Kessler tried to spin it, called it clerical errors, called me a violent squatter. But Judge Thompson wasn't buying. She leaned forward, her eyes like knives. This is a criminal land grab, she said, her voice cut in the air. The deed is void. Davenport Realty is banned from this property, and I'm referring this to the FBI for fraud, racketeering, arson, and assault. Her gavel slammed, the sound like thunder. The courtroom roared, Ranchers cheering, hats flying. Karen's face went white, her pink suit wilting. Kessler bolted, and deputies grabbed Karen as she tried to slip out, cuffs snapping on her wrists. I walked out of that courthouse, snow dust in my Stetson, Amos clapping my shoulder. "You did it, cowboy," he said. I nodded, my voice low. "For Clara. For Silas." Karen was indicted that week, caught at the airport with $300,000 and a ticket to Mexico. The FBI tore into Davenport Realty, finding millions in laundered money, fake fines, and shell companies. Her empire collapsed, her condos stalled, her signs torn down. I rode home, the ranch quiet under the stars, Blaze trotting beside me. The burned corral was a scar, but the land was mine, free and clear. I planted new grass that spring, my hands in the dirt, feeling Clara's smile, Silas's pride. I stood under the cottonwood, touching its bark. "We held it, darling," I whispered. "We held it." Karen thought she'd break me. She learned what happens when you cross a cowboy with nothing to lose. If you're fighting your own Karen, don't bend, don't break. Load your guns and charge. This is Buck Callahan, and you're watching HOA Karen Files. Toss your stories in the comments, subscribe, and let's keep these snakes running scared.